There is a very strange phenomenon: the poorer the person, the stronger the sense of morality. I have seen many poor people at the bottom, they have that spontaneous sense of morality. If you talk to him, whoever makes money in business, he will say that this kind of businessman is too black-hearted. You go to chat with him, this model is an opportunity for the poor to make money, he opened his mouth, bah, that is all black-hearted money. In the backstage of the hundreds of thousands of fans we operate, there are people like this who come to leave messages almost every day, such as making money and clean money. I wonder where their sense of moral superiority comes from. I want no money, I want a lot of superiority, I pretend to be a moral role model every day, I brainwash myself to feel good, but I don't do anything serious. Why can't they make money? It's just limiting yourself too much. Don't set yourself a bunch of restrictions as soon as you come up, the law doesn't restrict you, what do you restrict yourself for no reason? In fact, what you think is immoral is just that you don't understand it. Take the official account as an example, there are many ways to make money, one of which is the traffic model, they essentially just post an advertisement, you can turn it off if you want to watch it, how can you be qualified to teach others how to do it? When you watch TV and see an advertisement, you will say that the TV station is immoral and prevent them from not publishing advertisements. If you don't want to watch it, just switch channels. In many cases, you are not really how noble and moral you are. After all, you are just too lazy to think. There is no contradiction in the world, the contradiction is planted in your heart. You set yourself up with a bunch of contradictions. One of the important reasons why the poor are poor is that they have too much sense of morality. Imposing moral responsibilities or obligations that shouldn't be assumed on oneself has become a slave to justice, mission, and too many rules and regulations. So I look forward and backward, think twice, and write about everything I do, and finally miss the opportunity so that I am impoverished, achieve nothing, and regret for the rest of my life. As for the truly successful people, they never care about worldly prejudices. They are born with the instinct to perceive the extension of various rules and the bottom line, and they sneer at the daddy moral preaching and grand narratives that permeate the whole society and fool fools. Because making money is not moral in itself. The bottom line for making money is law, not morality. In the era of the consensus economy, most of the commercial value is created. In the eyes of the poor, the only way to make money that does not violate morality is manual labor. If you really want the so-called morality, you have to farm land and move bricks. I'm not saying that you can make money by being immoral, but that it has nothing to do with making money. Your products and services can meet some needs of some people, and you can make money. When these successful people are making money, you think it is ugly to be famous, but the uglier they are, the more money this person makes. For example, many people who make money on the internet, as long as you are selling, someone will definitely scold you for cutting leaks and calling you immoral. In their eyes, only if you give it to him for free, or even give him a free answer to his questions respectfully, they will be reluctant to praise you. You are a good person, your structure is very big, and you are very moral. If you take their judgments seriously, you will be poor forever. Never beg for the approval of the poor, and you will accomplish nothing like them. Whether you want to do something or not, you should see if it is a reasonable business model and whether you can make money, instead of worrying about the immorality of this matter. In the TV series Black Ice, Wang Haiwen said this: when the rules are established, they create huge benefits for those who violate the rules. You taste this sentence carefully. In fact, morality is just a tool, and it is also designed for you by others. Don't limit yourself so much, don't add drama to yourself, and don't live in the trap you set yourself. A down-to-earth and diligent person can be good at speculating, and a speculator can be very pious. Don't get entangled in morality and immorality, people themselves are multifaceted. When making money, you can put all the facial makeup on your face, no problem. It's just a mask, character is just a mask. Separate your real self from your ego, making money is like playing a game. Life is like a play, it all depends on acting skills. Morality is just a shackle, and making money is real. Many people have been brainwashed by a huge lie since they were young, worked hard to get rich. The more those poor people at the bottom, the more they believe in the sentence. They work very hard every day, work from dawn to dusk, and work hard. Year after year, they live like this, Not only do they not get rich, but the money they earn is almost only enough to support their families. I believe this is the portrayal of many people, especially those in rural areas. I have seen too many. Why? Because that is fundamentally wrong. It is just a rhetoric used to coax the bottom level people to work honestly. The truth of the world is that hard work makes you poor, not rich. The truth of the world is that 90% of people who work hard feed the 10% who get nothing. And the purpose of these 90% of people is to help the other 10% live better. Then these 10% of people rack their brains to design various rules to restrict and control 90% of people. The wealth of the rich comes from the labor of the poor. The harder the poor work, the richer the rich become. This is the so-called getting rich through hard work. Understand? Many of the education we have received since we were young are actually designed by a few people. If those poor people have money in their hands, who will work for him, and who will work hard for him? The biographies of those celebrities you have seen, as long as they say that they made money through hard work, it must be nonsense. Rich people won't let you know the truth about how they got rich. Their attitude towards the poor at the bottom is to hide as much as they can, and cheat as much as they can. What is the greatest wealth owned by the rich? It's not money, it's not a mansion, and it's not all kinds of resources. The greatest wealth owned is the poor, and the concept of being the poor will not change. The notion of the poor being played by the game is the source of the game designer's interest. Most of what you believe is what others make you believe. What you think is what other people make you think. What you know is what others let you know. Most people live in a designed game. Mobilize the interests of the upper class, and they will fight you desperately. Change the concept of the lower class, and they will fight you desperately. The concept of the poor at the bottom cannot be changed. If they can be changed, they will not be poor. They don't know at all that their own ideas are the source of other people's interests. It is precisely because these concepts of the poor cannot be changed, and the interests of the upper class are also difficult to be shaken. The biggest difference between people of different classes lies in whether they are doing bureaus or doing things. The upper level people are in charge, and they make full use of capital and manpower. People at the bottom do things, they are just a tool in the bureau. You work hard, nothing more than a tool for hard work. This has been the case since ancient times. More than 2,000 years ago, this sentence appeared in the Analects of Confucius: only the superior wisdom and the inferior fool remain unchanged. During the Yongzheng period of the Qing dynasty, the desire to promote the integration of officials and gentry into one errand and one payment of grains moved the interests of officials and gentry, and there was great resistance. In their eyes, the poor are serving the upper class, which is justified. Is it very worrying? That's right. Now that you know this, you have to accept it? If you can't accept it, then you should stop reading my article, because you are hopeless. I tell you the truth of the world, the naked truth, so that you don't stay at the bottom all the time. Accept the truth first, and then figure out what to do about it. This is why I always say that working part-time cannot get rich, and part-time work has no future. Because you can't just be someone else's tool, you can't just be a tool designed in someone else's game. Entrepreneurship is naturally the way out, but ordinary people should never do things that require a lot of investment. The best way is to obtain your own means of production and your own traffic. Although it was difficult at the beginning, this kind of hard work and dedication is entirely my own business. Being able to start this step, you are on the road to gradually get rid of the bottom. But the most time-wasting thing in the world is to reason with young people. If you say 1,000 sentences and 10,000 sentences, it is better for them to stumble and stumble, which is more real. Sometimes if you don't face setbacks, you won't appreciate the hard-won success. Sometimes you don't try to fail, and you don't feel the value of success. Improve what can be improved, change what can be changed, face what should be faced, and accept what should be accepted. Besides, there is no need to have too much persistence and force. I once read a passage: if the distance between the earth and the sun is 1% closer, the earth will be an eternal flaming mountain. If it is 3% farther away, the earth will be an eternal palace of Guanggan. The current distance is not far or close, just right. So it is not distance produces beauty, but appropriate distance produces beauty. In fact, between people, it matters. No matter how good the relationship between people is, it must be grasped. Don't talk about what you shouldn't talk about, Don't ask for things you shouldn't ask for, don't go beyond and overstep what shouldn't be intervened. If you have too many eyes, no one will approach you, but if you don't have eyes, you will bring disaster. The biggest stupidity of human nature is to show off that you are richer, better than others, wiser and more knowledgeable than others. The more you show off, the easier it is to get into trouble. During the Ming Dynasty, there was a wealthy businessman named Shen Wanzan. Once, Emperor Zhu Yuanzhang tried to test him, "I have millions of troops, can your money afford it?" Shen Wanzan replied proudly, "1 tael of silver is enough for everyone." Originally, Shen Wanzan just wanted to prove that he was rich, but he didn't know that this not only seriously threatened the emperor's regime, but also caused him to be killed. So when Zhu Yuanzhang established his capital in Nanjing, Shen Wanzan came up with the idea because the treasury was empty. The routine of putting a copper coin in his place to generate interest eventually depleted Shen Wanzan's family property and ruined his family. There is a saying, the customer never leaves the goods, and the wealth never comes out. The more a person shows off his wealth, the easier it is to attract the envy of others, and the easier it is to arouse the greed of others. But the most time-wasting thing in the world is to reason with young people. If you say 1,000 Hinduism has been the most important feature of Indian society since ancient times, and it is also the main driving force for changes in Indian society since modern times. Hinduism is one of the oldest religions in the world. It has a history of thousands of years and has more than 800 million believers. They mainly live in India, accounting for more than 82% of the Indian population. Hinduism maintains the legitimacy and sanctity of the caste system, and openly advocates the inequality between people. This inequality is based on the concept of purity and pollution. The blasphemer is the untouchable, and there are countless middle castes between the high caste and the untouchable. In order to make each caste strictly abide by the code of conduct of the caste, the Hindu law puts the performance of dharma, caste code of conduct, stipulates the highest human and religious values for each caste. Hinduism played a very important role in the modern transformation of Indian society. Whether it was the spread of Western liberalism triggered by the British colonists, or the national movement led by Gandhi and others, they all used the ideological resources in Hinduism, and use it as a tool for social integration. Since independence, India has practiced the so-called democratic system. The democratic system and the concept of democracy advocate the equality of people in theory, which is incompatible with the Hindu tradition. However, it is worth noting that these two seemingly incompatible things have coexisted peacefully in India for a long time, interacting and changing each other, forming a new Indian culture. The political and cultural traditions of India have become the main driving force for social changes in India since modern times. 1. The spread of Western liberalism and the Hindu reform movement in the 19th century. British rule in India promoted the spread of Western liberalism in India, and it was Indian intellectuals who took on the dual historical mission of inheriting Hindu traditions and spreading Western liberal and democratic ideas. The representative of the first generation of Indian liberal thinkers is Ram Mohan Roy. He was born in a Brahmin family in Bangladesh, but he admired the ideas of democracy and freedom explained in the works of Western bourgeois thinkers. He realized that there were many problems in Indian society and religion, and tried to overcome the ills of Indian society by learning from the West. He was determined to start with the religious reform first, and the method of reform was to transform Hinduism with Western religious forms. He opposed polytheism and idolatry, and advocated that just like Western religions have only one God, Hindus only worship Brahman, and Brahman is the only God, and established the Brahma Society in 1828 for this purpose. In 1830, the Brahma temple was officially open to anyone, regardless of race, skin color, or creed, as long as they believe in one God, they can enter. In the Brahma Society, idol worship and any sacrifices are not allowed, and insults and slander of any other religious beliefs and habits are not allowed. Influenced by Western humanistic thought, Roy also advocated women's education, opposed child marriage, and especially severely criticized the bad habit of Sati, a widow who burned herself on her husband's funeral pyre, and demanded the abolition of this barbaric and inhumane practice. Defend women's right to life, thereby opening the prelude to the reform of religious society in modern India. 2. The rise of nationalist movements and the politicization of Hinduism. If we say that the first generation of Indian liberals is marked by advocating reform of Hindu society, the second generation of Indian liberals threw themselves into the national movement. Tilak, known as the father of Indian nationalism, was the first to realize that no change, including parliamentary reform, could succeed unless the masses were mobilized to participate in the political struggle. To this end, Tilak draws upon Hindu traditions in the service of realpolitik struggles. In Tilak's own words, how can a man have national pride if he has no pride in his religion? Of course, it was Gandhi who really brought Indian nationalism and democratic ideas to the Indian people. The core of Gandhism is nonviolence. Gandhi introduced the idea of democracy and equality into Indian society by reinterpreting some basic principles of Hinduism. Indian traditional culture has a very strong elitist tendency, and it is this elitism that legitimizes the caste system and the dominance of Brahmins in society. This elitism has led to a divide between elite Hinduism and popular Hinduism. Gandhi strongly criticized the above two forms of Hinduism at the same time. In his view, both of them were self-centered and lacked social conscience and dedication. The indifference to the widespread injustice in society, the extreme poverty of the masses, the misery of women, the inhumanity of untouchable institutions and centuries of humiliation under foreign domination. The practice advocated by traditional Hinduism often makes the elite separate from the masses, do not care about the world's climate and political situation, and stay outside the turbulent national liberation movement. In Gandhi's view, this is a manifestation of selfishness. In order to make Indian social elites change their attitude towards life, get rid of selfishness, and devote themselves to the national struggle, Gandhi reinterpreted the religious doctrine of the unity of the Brahman and the self. Brahman exists and is embodied in all living things, especially human beings. To make oneself one with it means that one must become one with all living things, especially human beings. Brahman cannot be independent of them, so practitioners cannot be separated from them. Obtain Vatican and I unity. To be one with them is to share their sufferings, to suffer with them, to struggle with them, to alleviate and purify their sufferings, in a word, to serve them. The nature of the truth that individuals seek is not spiritual, but social and political. It is not the relationship between Brahman and the individual as advocated by the Hindu sages, but the most effective way and the best way to fight against untruth and injustice. Lifestyle. The only way to pursue truth is to act morally. Through this interpretation, Gandhi changed the passive elements in Indian religion and encouraged the social elite to actively participate in the Indian national movement. Gandhi not only wanted to push the elites of Indian society into the struggle, but more importantly, he wanted to win the masses into the movement. The most worrying thing for the Indian bourgeoisie is that the mass joining the national movement will inevitably lead to violent social revolution once the mass consciousness is raised. This is what Gandhi and other leaders of the Congress Party do not want to see. Gandhi's approach was to firmly implement the principle of nonviolence. The Indian people's movement is a movement to uphold the truth. Only by knowing the truth can one uphold the truth. Only one with a clear mind can know the truth, and only a person full of love can have a clear mind. Violence and love are fundamentally incompatible, and nonviolence and truth are incompatible. They are twins. This philosophy of love connects the cultures of the East and the West, enabling Indian nationalists to stand on a moral position higher than that of the British rulers and gain legitimacy for their struggle. This philosophy of movement is conducive to mobilization. The masses are more conducive to preventing the masses from control after being mobilized, embarking on the road of violent revolution, disrupting the plans and steps of the leaders of the Indian national movement, and leading to the failure of the goal. It was through the blending of the basic teachings of Hinduism and Western religions and the politicization of traditional religious theories that Gandhi established the doctrine of nonviolence. Nonviolence is a doctrine of democratic struggle that contributed to the establishment and implementation of a democratic system in post-independence India. Gandhi is thus considered both a Hindu reformer and the greatest democrat in Indian history. 3. Hinduism and India's nation-state construction since independence. After India's independence, people were deeply concerned about the compatibility between Hindu traditions and democratic systems and concepts, especially seeing the serious consequences of sectarian feuds caused by the India-Pakistan partition that accompanied independence. Therefore, Nehru put forward the slogan of secularism. Nehru's development ideas for India are, democracy plus socialism plus secularism. Nehru's socialism means adopting the Soviet socialist planned economic model to develop the economy. Democracy means that India implements the Anglo-American democratic political system. Secularism means that India insists on separating politics from religion, respecting people's religious beliefs, to prevent India from becoming a theocracy. Nehru and some other leaders believed that only through this method can we gradually overcome the deep-rooted sectarian and caste contradictions in Indian society, strengthen the sense of identity of all Indian people, and achieve the goal of a unified and prosperous India. However, India's democratic system has not brought prosperity to the Indian people. India's economic growth rate is much lower than that of East Asian countries, and the population living below the poverty line remains high. The northeastern and northwestern border provinces have long been in turmoil. However, the political consciousness of the middle and lower castes in Indian society is increasingly awakened, and they set up their own political organizations. By virtue of their numerical advantages, they elect their own representatives into the power organs, instead of voting for high castes as in the past. They call the right to vote for others they acquired in the past the first democracy and the right to vote for one's own people the second democracy. These changes made the upper castes feel a deep crisis, and they raised the banner of Hindu nationalism to integrate India and maintain the Hindu social hierarchy. Hindu nationalists face a dilemma. On the one hand, since Hindus account for more than 80% of the population, they are unwilling to give up the benefits brought to them by the one person, one vote electoral system. But this numerical advantage is potential, because Hindus are not a whole. Among Hindus, more than 24% belong to scheduled castes and listed tribes, and 25% belong to lower castes. Moreover, India in different regions Christians believe in different gods, and the most active advocates of Hindu nationalism are the upper castes in some states in northern India. Therefore, some modification of Hindu teachings and beliefs was necessary if they were to turn the potential majority of Hindus into a real majority. As early as 1923, Savarkar published the book The Characteristics of Hinduism. While proposing the slogan India is the India of Hindus, the book made a new definition of Hindu. Buddhists, Jains, and Sikhs are also covered, because these religions originated in India and are part of Indian culture. Not only that, he also included Indian Muslims and Indian Christians into the category of Hindus, because although Islam and Christianity originated abroad, the ancestors or themselves of the vast majority of Indian Muslims and Indian Christians were originally Hindus. It was only later that they converted to Islam and Christianity for various reasons, and their daily habits and values are still Indian. Since independence, Hindu nationalists have been trying to turn Hinduism into an Indian religion, Indian way of life and values, so as to achieve the purpose of integrating India. Since the 1980s, this force began to rise on the Indian political stage. After entering the 1990s, the political representative of this force, the Bharatiya Janata Party, won multiple victories in general elections and quickly replaced India's century-old party, the National Party. The largest party has become the largest party in India, and has organized governments many times and held power. Although the results of the 2004 general election were unexpected, the Congress Party won the victory instead of the BJP, but various political factions in India will not give up the tool of Hinduism, and they will continue to adjust their strategies to achieve the goal of political victory. To sum up, we can see the close relationship between Hinduism and Indian politics in modern times. On the one hand, the Hindu tradition has played an important role in creating, maintaining, and strengthening India's modern political system. Since then, Indian society has undergone major changes. People who were originally at the bottom of society have awakened and started to fight for their rights. The hierarchical order of Hinduism is undergoing revolutionary changes. This article is excerpted from Will India Rise? Brief introduction. Has India's land reform achieved the goal of land to the tiller? Are Indian intellectuals independent social critics, or have they been coerced into vested interests? Is Hinduism the driving force behind the tearing apart of Indian society, or is it the glue of national identity? Why does the ancient figure of caste linger in the modern landscape of India's big cities? Can India find its own third way? From the four levels of land and countryside, elite and masses, national reconstruction and exploration of development, this book outlines many aspects of India's modernization transformation from independence to the beginning of the 21st century, and analyzes the deep cause of India's social problems. I believe that will India rise? After reading this question, it will trigger readers' thinking and draw their own conclusions.